Hi everyone, in this video we are going to have a look at anonymous functions. Okay, so I created a new Dart console application and then I went to this file and this is the default text that you see here. Let's just remove that so that we are all on the same page. Okay, so you know functions, right? So there are two types of functions. We have named functions and we have anonymous functions. And the whole idea of functions is to encapsulate a piece of code that you want to use multiple times in your code or sometimes just on one place. And you do that, you create a function so that you don't need to type in every time this piece of code. So that's basically the idea of functions. Let's have a look at a named function. So I'll just put here a named function. What is a named function? This is something that you know. So let's create a simple function. Say hello, and we'll pass in a string as a parameter, and this will return hello name. There you go. And if we want to call this function, then we just say print, say hello, and we'll give it a name, John, for instance. There we go. So you see, this is a named function. What do we have here? Real quick, we have a return type of string. So it means that this function will return a string. This is the name of the function, and this is the parameter. And then inside of this function, there's a return statement. So it gives back a string value. And this is the string that we have here, some text, and the parameter that was passed to the function. And by using the print statement, we print out the text that the function is giving us back. When we run this, it will say, hello, John. So this is our named functions. Now, as I said, when you create a named function, you have an idea or a goal to reuse this function multiple times in your code. And so you don't need to recreate that code every time. This is different with anonymous functions. So anonymous functions, they exist because we only need to have a certain piece of code on one place. Let's have a look at an example where you could use an anonymous function, for example. So I'll quickly create a list here with names. And inside I'll say, okay, Jesse, Jake, and Marie. There we go. And we'll use the for each function. And this requires us to input an anonymous function. So it's expecting an element, and basically this is iterating over your list. It goes over Jesse, Jake, and Marie, and then it wants to do something inside this anonymous function. So I'll put here name, because we're talking about names, right, in our list. And then inside the anonymous function, I'm gonna say print hello, and then name like this. There we go. And there we go. So don't mind these messages. They're not so very important at this point in time. So we have our list and we have our for each. This iterates over our list, over the elements in our list. And this part here, you can't see it very well, but starting from here until there, this is our anonymous function. You see there's no name that this function has, so that's why it's also called anonymous. It takes a name and it prints out the name then. So if we run this again, you will see that it will print out hello Jesse, hello Jake, and hello Marie. So this is a nice example of an anonymous function. Now, there are some things which you can do with anonymous functions that you can't do with named functions. First of all, you can assign a function, an anonymous function, to a variable. This is something that you can't do with named functions. So remember, when we create variables, we give the data type and then we give the name like this. This is something that you can also do with an anonymous function. Now, you may be wondering what will be then the type of this variable. Well, very simply, it will be function. Let's give our function a name. There we go. And here we input our anonymous function, say string name, and then we input our return statement, and we'll give it the same return statement as before. There we go. There we go. So now we have created a variable which is called greet, and we have assigned this anonymous function to our variable. Great. And then you can also do, of course, stuff with this variable if you want. Keep in mind that this can only be done with anonymous functions. Let's say that, for instance, if I would input a named function here, like string say hello, as we have seen before, there you'll see that function expression can't be named. So it can't be a named function. There we go. All right. The next thing that you can do is you can also, because we have a variable now, you can also pass these anonymous functions to different functions. So that's a bit strange, but we can also do that. Let's say that we have a named function, like let's just say a named function, and we want to give this this anonymous function that we created before as a parameter to this named function. So then we say function greet function, and this also works. And then we can just pass our greet variable to this function, and then that will also work. There we go. The next thing that you can do is, we saw that we could create a variable of an anonymous function. We could also pass the anonymous function to another function, and you can also actually return an anonymous function from a function. So that's also very interesting. Let's have a look at an example. Let's type in a function here, and we'll call this greet machine. And then we will give the message. There we go. And what this function will do, this will actually return the anonymous function. So we'll input the return statement saying string name. There we go. And then this anonymous function will return message and then name. So let's take a moment to look at what we have created here. So let me first fix up all of the errors here. There we go. There we go. All right. So we created a new function which takes in the parameter message, and then this will return an anonymous function, and that's this part here, and this will also return the message and the name. So these are the two parameters that we got here. This looks a bit strange, right? Two return statements. Greet machine is a named function that will return an anonymous function. Look at return type function. You see this here. So this means that it will return the anonymous function. And the second return, this will not be called when you call this greet machine. But you may be wondering, okay, when is this then called actually? Let's look at an example. So let's create a new variable, English greeter, for instance. And now we are going to call our greetMachine function, greetMachine. And the message that we want to have here is, because it's an English greeter, we'll say hello. And now what we are gonna do is we're gonna print out our variable, which is the English greeter. And now we need to pass our name, let's say Frank, for instance. There we go. And then let's run this example. And here it says, hello, Frank. So we have assigned our greetMachine function to the English greeter, and English greeter will then call this here with the name that is passed via this here. So let's look at a different example. For example, let's have a French greeter as well. And we'll call greetMachine. We'll create a variable of the type with this function here. And there we say bonjour, bonjour. And then we'll print out French greeter. There we go. And then we need to give a name. Let's say Jacques, for instance. There we go. And when we call this here, we will see that our message and our variable passed, and now we have here bonjour Jacques. So this is something very interesting that you can do with anonymous functions. I hope the video was informative. If you like this content, please subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon, give a like. I would really appreciate that. I wish you a very good day. Bye bye.